please make sure you go over to YouTube, subscribe, or you can always find us on any of the podcast platforms, and that's Fostering Change. Well, you know what? It is hard to believe this is actually our 200th episode of Fostering Change. You know, in 5 years of 5 episodes that we have been doing this, I didn't think I'd get past year 1. And then year 2, 3, and now to know that we're on our 200th episode. You know, first of all, I hope for those of you who celebrated Christmas that you all had an amazing time with your family. I know that, you know, the Shears, we've, you know, really do Christmas big in our house. But I hope everybody had a great time. But you know what? I am so excited about our next guest. You know, I have to tell you that at first I didn't know anything about my next guest, but then I started doing research. But the funniest part about it, I started telling my friends, and my friends were like, "What? You know, are you kidding me? You don't know who the Bananas are?" And so, without further ado, I am happy to welcome Emily Cole. Emily, you are actually the founder of Bananas Foster, but you're also the co-owner with your husband to the Bananas in Savannah.
Yes, we are. Thank you for having me. We've got a lot of exciting things going on, of course, but always a pleasure to hear what you guys are doing with your organization. So honored to be here.
Oh my gosh, it's actually an honor to have you. You know, the fact is that, you know, I was reading information that you all actually have 1.4 million people on a waiting list for tickets.
So 1.4 was within the first 48 hours of announcing our 2024. It has grown from there, but that was in the first 2 days since we announced our 2024 schedule.
So tell me, what do you think it is?
You know, I think that people are just looking for an outlet to have fun and to feel joy because there are so many stresses in the world, and we really provide that escape for people. One of the things that makes me so happy is being able to walk around the ballpark and see a toddler on a grandparent's lap, because this thing is enjoyed by generations. You know, that this is one of the only things that you can come to with multiple generations, and people are happy together. The screens are down and they are in the moment with the people that they love, just smiling and having fun and laughing. And so grateful to have been able to provide that to a lot of people.
So you do know that who you guys are compared to when it comes to basketball and baseball.
Yes. Yeah, we take a lot of pride in that. You know, the Harlem Globetrotters, I'm sure, is who you're talking about. And they did a lot of great things for the sport of basketball. And, you know, a lot of people don't know that, but a lot of the things that are in the sport of basketball now were actually started by the Globetrotters. And so there's a lot of similarities there. You know, we do travel the country. We have a lot of fun. I will say one thing that's very different is that our games are not scripted. So when you go watch the Globetrotters, you know that they're always going to beat the Generals. When you watch our games, you never know who's going to win, because while we try to control all of the other things, you know, the sights and the smells and the music and all the rest of your experience. But what happens on the actual baseball diamond from an athletic standpoint is something that we don't try to script. We couldn't even try if we wanted to, because baseball is just too hard to do it that way. But yeah, that's completely competitive.
Well, I have to tell you, you know, I've been lucky enough, and my family, to actually we did a TV show in October that was released with the Harlem Globetrotters. And they actually brought you up as well. And the fact that, you know, there's so much love there. And, you know, for me, you know, I'm 57 years old, and I remember as a young boy on a Saturday morning waking up and watching them as a cartoon when they became a cartoon. And then I started reading all about you and everything that you're doing. And I love the fact that you're bringing families together of all generations. But, you know, you decided to take it one step further. And this is the thing that absolutely warmed my heart. You know, there are so many different sporting events out there, and the one thing that I just never hear is, I never hear the F word. I never hear anyone talking about foster care. And you know my story, you know, my 5 beautiful babies that are on the wall behind me. That foster care is, you know, as I say it, I took my pain and turned it into my passion, to bring awareness to foster care. And that's exactly what you are doing with your nonprofit. Can you tell me about how this started? Because to me, the thing that I've not seen that you're doing, and by the way, I have been all over the country, now all over the world when it comes to foster care. I have never seen an organization that is so focused on building a strong family for foster care. That's just, we're not seeing that.
Yeah, well, thank you for the introduction to it. It's still kind of a new project for us, but my husband and I have been licensed for about 3 years. And in that time, we've been fortunate that the Bananas have grown their platform, to a bigger size than we ever could have imagined. And so while we're starting our foster care journey, the Bananas are simultaneously growing. And we're thinking, okay, we can't bring every child into our home, but what can we do? And you look around and we have this platform now of 10 million plus people on social media, and the millions of people who come to our live events every year. It's like, how can we use that for good? And one of the things that we really wanted to focus on is staying true to who the Bananas are, which we are a brand that is full of joy. And so while a lot of nonprofits are out there with different goals, all good, we needed to make sure when we created ours that we were going to stay aligned with the Bananas brand. And so in creating Bananas Foster, we wanted to focus on the positives. And sometimes you have to dig really far down, but there are positives in this foster care world. And a lot of the time it comes back to the people. There are incredible workers and incredible foster parents doing incredible things, but they often do not get thanked and they do not have the light shined on them in a positive way. And so when creating Bananas Foster, yes, our ultimate goal, which I'll get to in a little bit, is about, the harshness of what's going on for these children. We wanted to start by focusing on the positive, which would be celebrating the people who are already doing amazing things. We know we're not going to come in and reinvent the wheel. We're new to this space. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel or push anybody out. But if we can walk alongside some of these heroes who are already doing amazing things and just tell the world, shout from the mountaintops what they're doing, we're gonna open up so many other people's eyes to what's going on down the road from us.
I mean, let me tell you something. As someone who has a nonprofit, we're in our almost 12th year. One of the things, and by the way, I come from the .com world, and so being in the .org world has been so different. But the one thing that I've seen as nonprofits is that we do not work together enough, and because of us not working together enough, the needle isn't moving fast enough. And I love the fact that what you said is that, coming in and walking and standing side by side, because I tell people that all the time. I have nonprofits that reach out to me and I'm like, hey, by the way, you want my grant list? And they're like, what? And I'm like, you want my grant list? I was like, there's enough money to go around. Not everybody's going to give to Comfort Cases, but maybe they might give to your organization. And I think that we need to have more of that standing together as a team, speaking of baseball, standing together as a team, because I think that's what children truly, truly do deserve. You brought up the comment about the fact of the light not shining. And, as we know what our statistics are when it comes to foster parents, they only last about 18 months. The turnover is about 18 months when it comes to foster parents. And I truly believe that, and again, this is my opinion. And by the way, all of you who send me the hate mail, I've been getting it for years. I'm okay with it. I got tough skin. I believe that the turnover is because there's not enough support for foster parents. I truly believe, as a father who was, I grew up in the system, and then to adopt 5 children out of the system, the lack of support, that I know that my husband and I received, I can't imagine for those who financially can't afford the things that we were able to. I think it's all comes from support.
I completely agree with you. And so our overarching goal here is to get more people involved. And really at the root of that is to get more foster parents. We are so blessed, as you alluded to earlier, about the wait list that we have for people waiting to come to a Bananas game. Over 1 million people just on a list ready to buy tickets when we say, hey, here's the opportunity. We're dreaming big and saying, why can't we create a wait list of foster families? Because if we do that, then that is going to help so many more things down the road, right? We're looking upstream here. Hey, if we have a pool of people ready in the wings waiting, no, of course, we don't want kids coming into care all the time. But if they do, if we matched them with the right family, how much trauma are we saving down the road by disrupting the placement, by having the foster parents quit within the first year, which is what statistics show us they're going to do? If we have a child come into a home and the home speaks a different language, how are we setting that child up for success?
You're right.
So our goal here is to get more people involved, to have more families waiting, so that the foster parents who are out there are not just answering the phone and accepting any placement because they have kind of a closet open and the DSS worker said you could put a mattress in there and it would work. That's what we're doing, is we're putting kids in homes that, yes, they're willing to open up, but they might not be in the best position to accept more kids.
Right.
So if we had a plethora of families who could each welcome one child who was a true fit for their family, so that that family could walk alongside that child and that biological family and help them to reunification, or to help them with the next steps. They didn't have to take on 7 cases at once. They weren't having all this burnout because they were dealing with one case. We just see such a bigger success rate if we focus on that. But it comes back to the root of every community not having enough foster families.
Yeah. But, I also think that it's also the fact that we do not educate our community enough about children who are in the system. There is this myth, and you talked about it, about shining light on the good. You have to say, every time you turn on the news or read a newspaper article, it's always the bad. It's always the bad. It's always the bad. And all of a sudden, I have people who have said to me, well, isn't that a bad kid? Isn't that why they're in foster? I remind people, as I remind all of our viewers and listeners, I say this all the time, kids come into the system because of a choice someone else made. A choice that someone else made. That's why they come into the system, not their choice, And so, we need to stop with the myths of these kids being bad kids, And I think we need to get into our communities and really educate them. One of the things I've asked my minister. We're Methodists, and I remember going to my Methodist minister, and I asked her, I said, Reverend Esther, I said, when is a social worker ever called you and asked to come and speak to our congregation about foster care? And she said, Rob, she says, I've been, the minister of this church for like 10 years at that time. And she says, I've never received a call. I said, why do you think that is? And she says, I don't know. What do you think? And I said, because we live on one side of the track. We live on one side of the track. And, and I want our listeners and viewers to know that people think that if you're in a certain income level, you don't care. And that's not true. That's not true. I think we need to get out there and educate our community about these beautiful kids who are just looking for stability. And I love that that's what you guys are doing.
Yeah. One of my favorite moments at every game now is we take a foster family on the field and we recognize them. And we tell the whole stadium, whether it's 5,000 at that stadium or 25,000 at that stadium, we stand there and we tell the whole stadium what rock stars they are. And while that is a special moment, what's really cool is when I'm walking off the field with this family and we're going back up the steps, and people are coming into the aisle and hugging them and shaking their hand and saying, thank you for what you're doing. I had no idea. In every city, we do this, and that happens. The reaction is the same. People are saying, wow, look at that hero. I didn't know that was going on here in this community. Maybe I could do that. And so we see the connections starting to be, we're using it as an educational piece without that being the main intention, right? Like, we're going in to celebrate these people, but I know that there's 20,000 people listening who might not have had any interaction with foster care before. And so the educational piece is a huge part of it. And we're definitely focused on that as well. It's important.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I've been very fortunate over the years that I've actually had people reach out to me and said, my family never thought about fostering until we heard you speak or until we read your book. And all of a sudden it was like a light went off and they were like, why can't we do this? And, I just recently spoke to a gentleman, him and his wife just adopted their child who had arrived from foster care, carrying a comfort case, and had decided to foster because I'd read my book. And it just, my heart just was like, and I want our listeners to know something. And Emily, I know you feel the same exact way. We do believe that reunification is the best for any child. The best for any child. First of all, I'll be the first one to say this. Foster care is not the answer. It's not the answer. We need to figure out as a community how to go in and truly foster the family as a whole. Truly, bringing that child out of a situation unless it's that situation that is, I have kids who it was abuse. I mean, there was no other. But when we start looking at that fine line of neglect, when we find out that neglect is because we have a single mom and she's not able to pay the electric, so you take her child. You have a single mom who, has to leave her 3-year-old with her 12-year-old because she can't pay for daycare, but she is going to a job to pay that rent. They take the child. We as a society have to get back to the roots of community. And with you in these games, you're seeing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really special when somebody comes up to us and says, I was in this situation and I either had a great social worker or I had a foster family who had my kids, who communicated with me. And so we are starting to hear all of those stories from all the different angles. And again, going back to us not trying to reinvent the wheel, really what we're trying to do is just be connectors. We're not an agency for licensing. We're not the foster care closet. We don't have certain things that our other nonprofit friends down the road do. But if we start to hear these stories and we are opening up doors and connecting everybody in the foster care world to whomever they want to be connected to, I think that we can all help this become more successful for everybody, including the biological family. They're a huge part of this foster care world that we don't really focus on.
Yeah, we constantly, for some reason, we shun them. We think that they're bad. Each and every one of us have fallen one time in our life, and we're very lucky as a family. We have one birth mother for 2 of our kids. I mean, we're very close to, and she's invited to big events, and we love that, and I think that makes a healthier child. It makes a healthier child, and I think that that's what our job is as humans are to do, is to make sure that I say this to people all the time, is that, when I was younger, people would say, oh, invest in a child and you invest in their future. And I've now gotten to the age where I tell kids all the time, if someone tells you that, it's not true. When you invest in a child, you actually invest in my future, because they're our leaders of tomorrow. They're our
our whole
leaders of tomorrow.
society.
Yeah, our whole society. And the fact is, you mentioned about this, we both know that foster care is always going to be around. We're hovering about 700 kids a day that are entering our system. Emily, I'm hearing stories and have actually gone and witnessed where we have different states where kids are actually sleeping in offices. It's happening in your state. It's happening in my state. And it's because of exactly what you guys are trying to do. We don't have enough foster parents. We just don't have enough.
Yeah, that's really going to be our overall goal, is to just inspire and educate our community by using the large platform that we are fortunate enough to have, and have people get involved. And when we talk about the foster parents, not having enough of them, it's for a multitude of reasons. I think sometimes people are just unaware, which we've already touched on, but the burnout is real. It's really hard and it's really stressful sometimes. And so one of the things that we're always encouraging is, if you cannot do it right now, I understand not everyone is in the situation where they can open up their home and be committed to a child, especially one with a traumatic background who really needs you. But you can support another foster family. And if we can extend the longevity of a foster home being open to placements, then we are going to be more successful at this. Because right now, the churn and burn of foster families is just hurting us tremendously. And there are so many things that we can do upstream to help fix that. One of the things I'm really excited about are our new potassium care baskets. Of course, we had to put potassium in front of it. But
I absolutely love that.
But they're just little baskets that are sprinkled with joy that we give to new foster parents. And sometimes it's right off the bat when they receive a placement. But more and more, we're giving it to people and we're saying, save this for a tough day. Save this for a court day. Save this for the day that successfully you reunify a child, but we know that your heart is heavy. Because what we want to do is walk alongside these foster families and give them that encouragement and give them that support when they're starting to feel like, maybe I can throw the towel in now. I've done it. It's been hard. We want to walk alongside them then and say, no, keep going. We need you. We're here with you to encourage you to keep doing more, take in another placement, help another child and family. And so these potassium care baskets, I hope, are going to help extend that longevity of, families being open.
Well, let me tell you something. I've spoken to your team about those baskets, and I was thrilled to death. I have talked to people about those baskets because I truly do know, the saddest thing for me is when I hear statistics where, a child has been, moved 3 and 4 times within the first 1,000 days because of the burnout of the foster parents. And I think that if we as a community came together and stood next to the foster parents to give them, maybe you need a date night. Maybe, within 3 months, we had 4 kids. And so, yeah, we were a little crazy, but we had 4 kids within 3 months. And, there were times that my husband and I looked at each other and thought, oh my gosh, can we really do this? But,
Yeah.
and we had nobody, we had nobody but each other. And so to hear that you guys are standing there and giving that, helping that, and giving that break, and by the way, I want people to know this isn't a bash on a social worker. Social workers,
Yeah.
we know that their caseload is so overwhelmed that they would love to be able to give as much as they could, but we as a community can do better. And you're right. Not every one of us are made to foster, not every one of us are made to adopt, but every single person can do something.
Absolutely. I agree.
Wow. Wow. So I'm telling you something. I'm excited for your new season. I hear that you're actually coming to DC, which, is my home. It's where 4 of my 5 children, they were adopted in DC. And so, I hope, Emily, that you and I get to meet. I hope you get to join us at a packing party. I cannot tell you enough that using your platform for what you're using it for is exactly what it should be used for. And I wish other organizations, other teams, other things would see that, building the foundation of children, in our foster care system is building the foundation for us. What would you say? Because you've been licensed for now. What would you say, the first thing you would say to a new family that has decided that they also want to take the foster care step?
Find your community. My heart breaks when I hear things that you and your husband went through in the beginning without the support. Honestly, I don't know how you kept with it, because it's a lonely journey sometimes, and it's a whole world that you're opened up to that you most likely were not exposed to before. Of course, you had been, but most people who are doing this don't know what they're getting into. And if you don't have the person who's going to bring over dinner on a tough, night after a tough visit, or be there for you to watch the other kids so that you can spend some one-on-one time with kids, it's going to be hard for you to do it. So my first thing, even before people say they're taking the classes, is, hey, start talking to people about it, because you're going to need your community at some point in the next couple of years. You're going to need your community to walk alongside you.
Yeah, I love that. And by the way, I've asked that question to many, many people, many. This is my 200th episode, and I've never heard that. I've never heard that. And what a great, great thing for people to know. Find your community. Find your community.
I think people have to go find it.
Yeah.
It's not something that I think sometimes people think it's going to find them. And that's not always the case. I think sometimes you have to be brave and say, hey, I'm going down this adventure. And it's going to be hard on me and my family. And I want to share that with you. And I want to be open about it. I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to ask for help, but I'm telling you now, months in advance. And I think if we're brave enough to do that for our kids, then we are going to be more successful in the long run. And I think people need to be open to that idea.
One of the things that you just said is something that I say quite often. These kids don't belong to you. They don't belong to me. They belong to us. They're our kids. And just to hear you just say that, as we wrap this up, Emily, there's a lot of listeners and viewers. We're very lucky, and they are very, very deep within their hearts of givers. And so how can they help your organization? Because I love these hope boxes that you're doing. What can they do? Where can they go? How can they be a part of this hope that we definitely want to give these families?
Yeah, so bananasfoster.org is our website. And of course, we're on all the socials. But for us, we're not going to be an organization that is the traditional fundraising and asking for donations. Of course, those can come. But we're very fortunate to have the Bananas back this organization, and my husband and I believe in it. There are other people in our office now who are getting involved in supporting foster families or becoming licensed foster parents. And so our whole organization is truly walking the walk here. And so really what we ask for from the community is to come on our website and just help us share and connect. As you said earlier, if nonprofits helped each other out a little bit more, it might get us to our goals faster. And so what we're looking for are stories and agencies and organizations across the country, because as we now travel around the world, every time we stop in a city, we want to highlight the superstars. We want to celebrate those folks. And so any submissions of amazing foster families who you've met, or wonderful organizations in your community who are doing big things who we can connect with, we are fortunate that we get messages after every single game saying, hey, had no idea that this was going on here in Des Moines or wherever we are. How can I get involved? Well, of course, I don't live there, but we have been connected to some wonderful organizations that we then open the door to that conversation. So we're truly just being connectors here. And so anytime somebody thinks of somebody wonderful in this space that they can put on our radar, we want that so that we can hopefully be that spider web of connecting the wonderful people who want to help.
Well, I'll tell you what, Emily, I am absolutely, to end my year with this episode, to be my 200th episode, my 200th interview, I could not have asked for a better guest. I mean, I will tell you, I can feel the pureness of your heart through this screen, and I just cannot say thank you enough. For a kid who was in the system and for a father who has adopted my 5, I cannot thank you enough for being the human that you are, for you and your husband, because let me tell you something, you can have any type of team you want. You bring the heart to the team. I'm telling you that right now. You bring the heart to the team. Listen up, everybody. This is a first for me. I am absolutely speechless. Normally I have nonprofits on and I tell them to push. They want the donation. This one, listen, she wants your stories. She wants the connection. She wants to be able to highlight those superstars that we know are out there. And by the way, if you're listening to this episode and you're a foster parent and you're just feeling defeated, reach out to this organization, okay? Reach out to me, because I want you to know that you are my hero. And Emily, I want you to know that you're definitely my hero, my friend. And I cannot wait for you and I to meet in person. Everybody, this is another episode of Fostering Change. If you have any questions, any comments, and you all send them, you can always send them to info@comfortcases.org, and I'll be more than happy to answer all your questions. Until next time, Happy New Year, everybody. Take care. Hey everybody, it's Rob Scheer, the founder of Comfort Cases, and thanks for tuning in to Fostering Change. You can actually watch a couple of episodes right here